Hey, good morning, John. This is a quick demo, maybe not so quick because I've got two sabers of yours. I've got your Emperor Saber by KR, and then I've also got your KR Luke V2. We'll be going over both of these so that I can get both of these out in the mail to you. Let's go over the Luke first. So they're both installed with Proffie V2. They both have removable chassis. This one just has a removable back half though. It's installed with CCSabers in here. I did put the pixel holder down into the little recessed area, and I took out the cup so that you could get as much blade depth as possible. I did put your switches in your clamp card. Your front switch right there, that's your activation, and your back switch is your auxiliary, just like you asked me for. I did sand down this card quite a bit. You do have to do that in order to get the room to have that switch mobility so that you can actually press down on them, but it worked out fine. And this saber only opens from the back. So we open it like this, take off this little cap piece. And when you take that off, you'll see your chassis sticking out about that far. So we can pull your chassis out. I did put Luke Skywalker on here in airbrush like you asked me for. I put the Jedi symbol on there that you had requested, and then I do put Solo Sabers over here on the other side. And then you've got a 28mm speaker over here with your board. This board is just a press fit down in the shelf. So if you ever wanted to pop it up and change your configuration, you can do that. And a copy of your config for this Saber is on this SD card. Same for the Emperor, it's on that one as well. And then I used Smuggler's Outpost switch and pixel PCB set with these 14 pins here. And then you've got the other piece of that trace up there that never comes out. So what we want to do is we'll just throw a battery in this guy. It's a removable battery, so spring side here is going to be the negative side of your battery. I won't be sending you batteries because you're overseas, and I don't send batteries overseas. So you will have to source your 18650.
It's time for the Jedi.
Lithium ion. So you do have motion controls. With motion controls, they might tend to go off on you, but it's no big deal. So we're going to slap this guy in here, just like that. We're going to take this cap. This speaker is far enough in this chassis where this cap is going to press up against it. It'll press up against the chassis, but not the speaker. So when you're putting this on, it's going to start getting stiff on you. You want to tighten it all the way. Don't be afraid to tighten it all the way, because that's what's engaging those pins. And if you don't tighten down the back all the way, those 14 pins might not engage fully, and then you're going to have trouble turning on the saber. It won't turn on for you. It's a little cold out in the garage, so I'm trying to get my fingers right. So we tighten this down all the way as far as it will go. You can see your speaker there, but it's not touching the back here. There's just enough room in that chassis where you won't get sound distortion. And then your front button here is your activation. Back is auxiliary. We can tap this to turn it off, or we could swing on like this and twist off. And then we can hit auxiliary to go to the next sound font.
Jedi form is among the greatest of the Jedi. The great Jedi once told me, the best leaders lead by example.
We'll go to a Luke Skywalker one.
Luke Skywalker.
To get to your soundtracks, what you want to do is just hold down the power for a second when the saber's off and let go. While that's playing, you can initiate the blade. And then to turn it off, we do the exact same thing. Just hold it down for a second and let go. So we'll throw a blade in this guy. I did program both of these sabers to use KR pixel strips, so they're set at 264 on each. I don't have that. I've got a regular blade here that I made, so it will light this guy up anyway. I'm gonna use your blade retention. I just gotta find it. Lock your blade retention down. Your blade retention screw is right there, if you can see that. It's right in that weathering portion. So you've got battle mode on both of these. So when you hit the saber, let me do that again. When you hit the saber, it'll initiate blade lockup. You can see that right here. And it will stay that way until you pull away from it. And that's how you pull away from it right there. Twist it off. We'll go to the next one. I left all the stock fonts on here just in case, because I do have different blade styles, but we'll skip through those.
Rogue Commander. Team C. Smooth Jedi.
We do that with the auxiliary.
Smooth Gray. Smooth. Team C. Smooth Jedi.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
So of course my blade's lighting all the way up, but yours will too. I have a 138 pixel count on my blade.
Kylo Ren.
I did give you a Kylo Ren. This is a Rise of Skywalker, but I left it. I just thought it was cool. I did something a little unusual. I usually have, here, just tap the auxiliary for blaster deflex. Just gotta find it. I did something a little different than I usually do. I usually have people send me the sound fonts and I load them on here for you. That way you guys are paying people directly for their work. I don't have to worry about hunting that down or knowing who you got it from. But this time was a little bit different. You want me to do that for you. So now I will just reach out and pay the appropriate people. Believe most of these go to Kyberphonic. So to get everything out, we want to unscrew this guy right here. It will be a little tight because we screwed it in tight and those pins are engaging. So it will create a little bit of friction. But when you get that off, you just take this off. Chassis comes right out. You can come in here from the positive side with your finger and pop that battery out just like that. And then I just always put this back in here for safekeeping, just like that. And we'll screw this back on. So you got a couple Luke fonts. You should have an Obi-Wan font on here as well. And then you have a Kylo Ren font. And then on top of your, the basic config for Proffie, all the sound fonts that come with Proffie. And then blade styles, I gave you the audio flicker. I gave you some responsive blade styles. I did give you some preons because you asked for those. So you'll notice those in your blade as well. They're all loaded up on here. And then like I said, a copy of your config is on the Saber as well. So that's the KR Luke. I hope that came out the way you liked. We'll move on to the Emperor. This guy's always kind of a cram food job for me. I don't know that I'll be doing too many more of these just because, you know, it can be a little bit difficult. It's a fun build, but the way that things have to go in here, you just have to understand there's not much room for much of anything. So I like to hide the wires when I can. Can't hide the wires on this guy, and I'll show you why. But this is also a 2-button setup. So your red button over here is always going to be your activation, and then your green button will be your auxiliary. To get to everything, we want to unscrew this guy right here. So we'll unscrew this and we'll take that completely off. That comes off as one piece. While you're unscrewing that, you kind of want to hold on to that gold piece right there like I did with my palm so I wouldn't drop it. But okay, sorry, let me back up a minute. So once we get that out, this gold piece will come out. You just need to be careful with it. On some of these I've done, this piece will pop right out. On yours, you just kind of have to grab it at the seams and pop it out, and then it comes out just like that. And then you've got your chassis in there. But before you take your chassis out, you want to take these two acrylic buttons and you want to face them downward, because they're only held in there by gravity and they're sitting on top of the switches right now, but the switches are part of your chassis. So when you look in there, there's a bunch of chassis material up top that you can push against. Try not to push against the pins when you take your finger and you push that chassis out this way, just like that. And then when it comes out this far, you can go ahead and pull it out. Now, the only thing that's holding those red and green acrylic pieces for your switches in there is just gravity. So I like to try to have it facing down so that they don't fall out. They'll probably fall out sometime on you, and that's okay. They're not too bad to put back in, but it's best to avoid having to do that if you can. So here's what we've got. I'll set this off to the side. And then here's the chassis. A lot of wiring going on in this chassis and not a whole lot of room to hide anything. So I've got your two switches here, the provided switches that came with the hilt that have the red and green LEDs on them as well. I did bring those switch wires over and I resisted them. In the past, I've had the resistors right here, but because I had to go in and I modified my chassis to say what you wanted it to, I believe it says Darth Sidious right here, and then you wanted this symbol as well right here, which I did that for you. I went ahead and I hollowed out this portion up in here enough to where I could put the resistors back in here and you won't see them. You can see them if you look in here on the underside. That's where they're hiding at, but they're out of the way of the battery. Everything works great on this guy. It's just a tight fit. So you've got CCSabers pixels in here. The holder is obviously part of the chassis. You do have a battery compartment right here for removable, and then your spring side is your negative. When you put a battery in, this guy's super tight. So I suggest if you have your battery, I would take the sticker off your battery. I haven't been with mine. I've just been making my sticker face out. Let me show you what I mean. Just like that. So I've got my sticker facing out this way instead of butted up against the underside of the board. Now you're going to see this little cutout right here in your chassis right in front of your speaker. You have a 24mm Smuggler's Outpost speaker back here. This cutout is going to line up with this rectangle piece right here, and I'll show you how we do that. So we got your two switches here. We're gonna flip this over just like we've got the Saber flipped over, so the switches over here stay in, and we're gonna slide it in this way. You're gonna try to line it up the best that you can on your way in. You probably won't be perfect, and that's okay, but try to get it the best that you can. It's one of those things that's a little difficult to do on camera, so I'm just going to do it and then I'll show you what I did. So I've got it most of the way in. Let me get something to point at. So you can see that little square cutout right there. I tried to square that up with that screw hole right there, and that's how we line the switches up. If you don't have this chassis dialed in and clocked correctly this way, this piece won't go all the way on, and that's to assist you in lining up the switches. So now that we've got that in there, we're gonna take this guy. You do have gesture controls. So we're gonna take this guy and we're gonna put it in. And remember, if you don't have that locked in all the way, or if you don't have it clocked in correctly, this piece won't go in at all. It's in right now. Once it's all the way in, you can flip this guy and do whatever you want, because now those acrylic pieces are resting on top of your switches. So now that we've got that gold piece in, we're gonna need to come back and put this screw back in that we took out. So we'll do that real quick. just like that. And you can see your switch LEDs are working great. In there is working like it should. We'll twist off. If we didn't want to do the twist motion and just use the switches, we could hit the activation. Auxiliary over here. And then we could tap the activation and turn it off. Or we could just twist off. So this has some Emperor fonts on it as well, just like you asked me for. So I am going to throw a blade in. Like I said, this one is also programmed for the KR Pixel blade, so at 264 LEDs, but it still lights up my cheap blade just fine. It's going to lock down your blade retention. My blade's not cheap. It's like any other blade. I have not had a chance to use the KR strips to make a blade yet. It's just not, it's on my list of something I'll try. I just haven't got around to doing it. I've been super busy, and that's low on a priority list. So activation.
What could you give me? Everything.
I got you a nice unstable blade here. So you can tap your auxiliary to get your blaster deflex. This also has battle mode. You're going to see my blade lock up over here because it is designed, it is programmed for the KR strips. So I've got 138 strips on here, so it's reading like my blade is only half of what it's programmed to do. We'll cycle through a few of these as well. This is Exegol. Be a nice unstable blade for this one. Let your blade lock up. Your blade lock up will show in the middle of your blade. This is more of an audio flicker blade, but it kept it red for the theme. And we'll take the blade out. So what I did with your switch LEDs on this one is the same thing I did with my other Emperors that I've installed, is I actually ran your power wires for your LEDs on your switches straight to the positive pad on the speaker, or the positive speaker pad on the board. So your LEDs for your switches light up when there's power on the blade, and they actually they react to sound, because that's what the speaker does too. So we'll take this back off. This chassis, when it has a battery in it, will be a little more difficult to take out. It's not difficult, it's just takes a little bit more to get out than it would without a battery, because it's taking up more real estate in there. So we got this, we unscrewed this, right? We're gonna flip this over so our switches are on the bottom. Come in here and take this gold piece off. And it pops out like that. And then you will need to go in here with your finger, and like I said, don't press on the pins. Try to just press on that piece of the chassis until your chassis is out about that far, and then you can come in here and just pull it out with your hand. And because you have motion controls, it's probably going to go off on you when you're doing stuff like that. Not a big deal. And then we'll come in here from the positive side of this battery, and we can pop it out with a finger, or if you need to, use a tool. My fingers are kind of cold out here this morning, so we'll pop it out this way. Now you've got this guy. You can put it right back in your saber pretty easy. It goes in pretty easy either way. I spent a long time making sure that everything slid in and out. It's just not going to be loose on you. So you have a nice tight fit. So your switches work properly and everything lines up properly, and there's no rattling around on this guy. You might find sometimes that, like I just did there because I was too busy talking. So when I was trying to put that in, that square cutout's not perfectly lined up with that screw hole. So I'll just push it out about this far and try to go at it again. Just like that. So I probably got it there. And we'll put this guy in. Maybe I got it. It's one of those things you want to do and pay attention and not try to make a video of yourself while you're doing it. Just like that. That chassis being lined up is the only way this gold piece will go in, and you'll see it flush right here. Otherwise, you'll know that it's off a little bit, and you probably need to get back in there and push it out and try to push it back in a little bit again. Once you do it 2 or 3 times, you'll get used to the feel of it. It's not difficult to do. And then we'll lock that back down. Everything's solid in there. I can come over here and I can click my switches, which also tells me it's a good indicator that everything's lined up and everything's good to go. So that is your Emperor Saber. I hope that came out the way you liked, along with your KR Luke. I'll get this loaded up and this demo sent out to you today. If you got any questions, please let me know. If not, I will try to get these out in the mail to you tomorrow. Thanks.